We'll get started in just a minute. It's almost time. All right, so today, talking about research. And it's also National I Want You to Be Happy Day. So if you see anybody a little bit unhappy today, um, tell them it's National Happy Day and hopefully they'll brighten up. I'll go ahead and get started. It is 1 o'clock and let's see. Curiosity begins from the time we're born. So students ask questions and we usually give them answers from time to time. But they're also people were naturally curious. So we want them to also gather and research information on their own. Um, our goal is we want students to be able to demonstrate the ability to use technology for research, think critically, make decisions, communicate, and collaborate effectively, be creative and innovative. This session is for secondary, and I'm going to go ahead and start off with 6th grade. And it's kind of a little front-loaded, and then because most of the skills are introduced in 6th grade, and then by 7th or 8th grade, they've already should have mastered these, but I'll go ahead and go through all the standards. And it is kind of a quick session, but I'm going to go ahead and go to all these links that are pretty helpful. And if you'd like, I can share this slideshow with you so that you have these links to share with your students as well. All right, so in 6th grade, you need to introduce, identify probable types and locations of websites by examining their domain names. So students need to be able to understand why domains have different endings, those edu, the .coms, orgs, .govs, things like that. And so if we go here, here's kind of a basic definition of why they have the different in domain names here. So of course, .com is commercial, and net, like we have on our domain, network. .gov, government, org, organization, edu, of course, is education, and of course, there's a whole bunch of different ones. And there's new ones being created all the time. So if they just get a thorough understanding, that helps them understand if it's a valid research website. Is it going to be helpful or is it credible for their research purposes? So we'll go back up. And the next thing we want to introduce is using search engines and online directories. Explain the differences among various search engines and how they rank results. So here's a helpful website here. And it's how do search engines work and why should you care? So this was updated just in December. Oh, no, not that's a whole year ago, but it's still pretty valid. I guess I forgot. I was a year behind here. I was thinking we're still in 2020, so I thought it was recent, but I forget we're 2021 now. Um, but here are just some basic, how it works, so your students can kind of understand um, when you put in a search query and it goes to the search engine that they're using, how it brings that up and why. Why is that important? Because in terms of research, you want to be using the best search engine that for the research that you're conducting. So it's going to go over, what is a search engine? Most students only know about Google, but there's other search engines out there. And so you do want to go ahead and let them know that there are different ones that you can use. And it's pretty lengthy, so I won't go over everything, but it does talk about how it works and what it does, how it brings up those, how the algorithm works, things like that. It's pretty interesting. The next thing you want to introduce is using appropriate academic language. And I know I've brought this up before. If you don't have some kind of cards or something to have up in your classroom with the definitions of like your typical internet vocabulary, things like that, you can always find one online like I did right here. So this is one that I found. Uh, there was a lot that was more towards little kids, but I was able to find one for high school. I wasn't able to find one that was more towards middle school, but I think this one would work even for sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. So it does say you can use it. There's a common creative license here, so your students would be able to use this website and use the definitions on here and all the words, and it's pretty thorough. There might be some that are missing, but it does have a lot of terms that you would normally use, um, all the digital internet terms, things like that. And it goes all from A all the way down to Z. So there's that one. And then explain how technology can support communication and collaboration, personal and professional productivity, and lifelong learning. So I've included this here. And let me go back over that one because I kind of just read it, but I didn't understand it myself. Okay, so explain. Okay, so why do we learn these skills? Why do we have to know these? Why do we have to research? Things like that. And here are some lessons that are going to help your students build on those skills. And you can see, you can separate it by middle school, by high school. Some of these are going to help your students understand how to, let me see. So let's look at this one. Research and organize information about a location to create an interactive guide. So all these lessons are built so that you can actually use these skills later on. And they're really good skills that are lessons that you don't even have to create them yourself. They're already created for you. And if I filter it, it's going to separate those ones that are just for high school. And you can see this one is determine if a source is credible using a table of key questions. So all these are really great and they go right along with what we're learning here. The next one is write correct in-text citations and reference list for text and images gathered from electronic sources. One thing I had to learn was citing, and I had to learn how to write it all out myself, like way back in school. And then, of course, in college, I finally found those sites where you can just plug in the information and it would do it for you. And I was so happy that those came along. So here's one that students can use. I'll go ahead and click on that. And if I put in a website, so let's say we want to cite this one, and we'll put it in there. and it's going to do all the work for me. And there it is. So there's the author, there's the name of the title of the article, the date, and of course the link to the article itself. And all they have to do is copy it and add it to their research paper or whatever they're writing. So it's pretty handy. I like this one because there's not a whole bunch of ads on it. It's free to use, and you can add as many on here as you would like, and it'll go ahead and, I think it'll go ahead and alphabetize it for you. I've only done one at a time, but this one is pretty nice. So you can give that to your students for them to use to cite their sources. Use web browsing to access information. So that one's pretty straightforward. Being able to enter URL addresses, creating bookmarks, favorites. I do believe most students know how to do that. I'm going to open a new tab here. Do teach your students how to create folders. I've seen a lot of, when I have to go into student accounts and fix their Chromebooks or do whatever I have to do, reset them, things like that. And they've got just tons and tons. And there's usually a little tab over here. If I keep adding to this, it creates more and more over here. But you can always click here and add a folder. And let's just say this one is called, I don't know, something about cars. And so I can add to this one quite easily. Whoops. And I totally messed that one up. Okay, so I can't do it like that. But if I go over here, and I have my bookmarks hidden, so I'm gonna have to just go and move it. And if I add it to my bookmarks somehow right here, okay, so then I can go and add it to it like this. I hid it so I can have more window space, but if I click here, I can change that and I can show my bookmarks bar, and then I can go ahead and drag it to there right in here. So, and I don't want to do that. And let's go back here, but do teach them how to create those so it's a little bit more organized and they can easily find those tabs that they need. And at the end of the year, teach them how to get rid of some of those things that they no longer need. Or even at the end of the 9 weeks, they can go through those and get rid of some of the stuff that they no longer need. And then the next thing we want to introduce is use and modify databases and spreadsheets to analyze data and propose solutions. So here is a great website that I was able to find. And these are all free for students to use. I checked a lot of them out. So some of them are for a little bit higher students in 6th grade, but things like Google Scholar and of course the well-known ERIC database, those are all pretty easy to use. Some of them are more for science, some are going to be more towards medical journals, things like that. So it depends on what the student is researching. You may want to gear them towards certain databases to use instead of others, but you'll have to kind of look at them and see which ones you may suggest for your students. Oops. And then the next one is develop and use guidelines to evaluate the content, organization, design, and use of citation and presentation of technologically enhanced projects. So here is a place for you to go to, and this is going to be up to you to decide as a teacher. some of the things that you may want to look at whenever your students are researching, what tools you may want to guide them towards. So commonsense.org has a lot for you to, they kind of go through websites for you, and then you can look at them from there and decide if that's one of the websites that you would, let your students use. So I added this to the slideshow so that you can kind of see if that's something that you would want to your students to use. Oops. And I need that to move so I can read the last one. And then one skill that they learned from the previous grade is use effective search strategies for locating and retrieving electronic information. So using syntax and Boolean logic operators. So many times your students, and I've seen this many, many times, even when I was subbing or when I have to go into a classroom and help students learn something, is the way that they look something up. So, oh geez, and um, so let's say they're going to research, I don't know, how how fast is a Ferrari? And they typed in the whole thing. I don't even know if I know how to spell Ferrari. Probably not. Okay. And instead of typing in the entire question, we need to teach them how to just type in those key words. So we take out that and we go over here, we type in, now that I know how to spell Ferrari, and we type in maybe fast, but we don't want the new Ferraris. So maybe minus new. So we learn how to use those plus and minus buttons, things like that. And so it helps our search, and we also can teach them how to set the settings, use the search settings, and of course the tools. We can teach them how to use the range of when the articles were put out. We can also show them those things. So if you go into search settings, this is going to give you how many results per page you're going to get. Of course, the more you put, the slower your results are going to come out. But this is really helpful. It's usually not checked, but if you check this, it's going to open it in a new browser instead of them having to go back to your search results page. And so make sure that that is checked. And so little things like that can help their searches while they're doing some research. All right. And so the standards that correlate with research in 6th grade. Of course, reading for information, 6.5, 6.7, and 6.10. I'm going to analyze how a particular sentence, paragraph, chapter, or section fits into the overall structure of a text and contributes to the development of the ideas. Integrate information presented in different media or formats, visually, quantitatively, as well as in words, to develop a coherent understanding of a topic or issue. And by the end of the year, read and comprehend literary nonfiction in grades 6 through 8. Text complexity, band proficiency with scaffolding is needed at the high end of the range. And they added one of the math practices, which is math practice 3, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. And in 7th grade, what we're doing is just reinforcing all of those skills that we introduced in 6th grade. So that was a lot to introduce in 6th grade. So many of the times you're still going to be either introducing them if they didn't get them in 6th grade, or just building them on those skills. And this one right here, searching, just building those search skills. Those should be mastered. 7th grade, the standards are the same. They do change just by the wording. Analyze the structure an author uses to organize a text, including how the major sections contribute to the whole and to the development of the ideas. Compare and contrast to an audio, video, multimedia version of the text, analyzing each medium's portrayal of the subject. So you can see it was the same standard, but it does change here. And this one doesn't change much at all. And of course, 8th through 12th grade, all those skills that we talked about from 6th grade, they will have mastered these. And hopefully your high schoolers, your 8th and I guess upper middle school and then high school students are doing quite well by this time with these skills. The standards for 8th grade: analyze in detail the structure of a specific paragraph in a text, including the role of a particular sentence in developing and refining a key concept. Evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of using different mediums, print or digital text, video, multimedia, to present a particular topic or idea. So you can see how this one changed from compare and then went to evaluate. And this one is pretty much the same. By the end of the year, read and comprehend literary nonfiction at the high end of the grades, 6 through 8. And for 9th and 10th, the standard changes to analyze in detail how authors' ideas or claims are developed and refined by particular sentences, paragraphs, or larger portions of the text. Analyze various accounts of a subject told in different mediums. Person's life story in both print and multimedia, determining which details are emphasized in each account. And by 11th and 12th grade, they are analyzing and evaluating the effectiveness of the structure of an author, how he uses his or her exposition or argument, including whether the structure makes points clear, convincing, and engaging. Integrate and evaluate multiple sources of information presented in different media or formats, visually, quantitatively, as well as in words, in order to address a question or solve a problem. So it's really neat to see how these same standards, when I did this morning research starting from kindergarten, that same standard, how it changes on the vertical alignment all the way up to 12th grade. But it starts so simple, and yet it goes all the way to this. From the very beginning, it's looking at the cover of a book, and it goes to this. So that is what I have on research. If you have any questions at all, I will be in here for a few minutes longer. And like I said, if you want, I can share the link to this. That way you have all of those resources. And let me change that. I'll put that in the chat. And I'll try to include it also whenever we put it in the Cavern Crusade. But that is all I have for you, unless you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.